In the world of online Dungeons and Dragons, one of the most important things that I look for is how my players interact with their characters, the character sheet. Now, while mileage may vary, there's a lot of different character sheets out there, but I found the best ones so far. I'm going to show it to you today. Welcome to Foundry. I'm going to try not to delve too far into the nitty-gritty of what Foundry does as a virtual table, but I'm going to focus mainly on their character sheet support and what it provides and why I think it's the best in the business right now. So there are a couple disclaimers I should mention right off the bat. I have initiated two modules to my Foundry tabletop. One is called Argon Combat HUD, and one is called Carousel Combat Tracker, both of which you're going to see here. And let's just dispel some rumors right off the bat or some myths. Foundry Tabletop is not a difficult tabletop. In actual fact, I found it easier than Roll20 as far as navigating and using. I think a lot of the fear comes from the fact that it is an open source virtual table, meaning there's lots of third-party content and lots of modules and add-ons that can be implemented into the Foundry Tabletop itself. And while that all sounds intimidating, the way that you go about adding all of these features is quite simplistic in actual fact. By booting up Foundry, you actually have a list of these mods already right integrated into the actual UI of Foundry. And if something doesn't work the way you want it to work, you simply uninstall it. So far my time with Foundry has been very easy, very simple. There is a learning curve, but it's not as steep as I thought it was. So with that out of the way, let's dive into what this video is all about, which is the character sheet. So what you're seeing here is my landing page for my new Dungeons & Dragons campaign that's going to be coming up. And I've dragged a token onto the table to illustrate some of the usability of their character sheets as well. But right off the bat, let's get into the basics. So if you look on the top side of your Foundry page, you're going to see a little icon that looks like a little person. They refer to this as actors. So everything in Foundry, that whether it be monsters or characters, they're considered actors. So by clicking on that, I've got a few folders set up, but right off the bat, you're going to be able to create a new actor. So let's do that and have a look at the actual character sheet layout. So I'm going to call this one Test. And just like that, we've created an actor. So I should have actually mentioned, sorry, I do have a third module installed called Paper Doll. Paper Doll, I'm going to close that right now so it doesn't distract you, but I'll tell you a little bit about it in a second. So this is the DnD 2024, DnD 5e, whichever you prefer, character sheet. This is integrated right into the Foundry system, so you don't need to actually go and take any mods to have this character sheet. I'm going to walk you through why I like this character sheet. So right off the bat, I'm going to avoid sort of downplaying other character sheet systems in the market. I do find that all of the character sheets I've used have pros and cons, but this one has more pros than cons. In actual fact, I haven't found any cons to it yet. So for me, character sheets are the portal for the player to engage with the game, and thus it needs to be one of the best, well-constructed components of any virtual table. So along the side of this character sheet, you're going to see some tabs. And those tabs, along the right-hand side here, those tabs serve to divide the character sheet experience into separate sections for players. Now, you might not think that this is a big deal, but when you look at other character sheets in the market for virtual tables, they put the whole character sheet right out in front of you. And that's intimidating. You're going to see stats, you're going to see numbers, words, just a whole lot of stuff. And depending on where you are in learning Dungeons & Dragons, that can be really overwhelming. So for this first page right up here, they refer to it as the details page. It's going to have your standard stuff. It's going to have a spot for your portrait. It's going to have your ability scores at the top along with your modifiers. Your level goes up there as well as a nice little thing for your inspiration. And it has your saving throws. Now, some important data, obviously, there's an armor class section right there. There's an initiative section, your walk speed and your proficiency, as well as a visual bar for your hit points, numerical as well, and hit dice. Now you're going to see as we build this out why the use of visuals is such a key factor and why I love this sheet. So I'm not going to put a portrait in. I'm going to walk you through the different sections. The next section is your gear section, or inventory as they call it. So nothing else changes on the sheet as far as information, but this middle part here is what's going to zoom into inventory. I'm going to show you how that's added. Tab 3 is your features. So again, your features are all listed in a separate tab so that it doesn't become overwhelming for the rest of your character sheet. Now I know D&D Beyond, Roll20, and other character sheets have a similar system, but once we start filling this in, you're going to see why I prefer this system. Down here we have effects that might be affecting your character. You can toggle those independently. And of course the time-honored biographies, where you can put your flaws and any ideals, traits, and things like that, as well as your alignment, hair color, and all that fun stuff. And then down below is your ability to modify your character sheet. So that's a tab that doesn't really get used. So that's it. That's your character sheet in a nutshell. It's broken out into tabs, which condenses the information so that the players aren't overwhelmed all at once. But let's start filling this in now, so you can start to see what this would look like if a player was actually using it. So right off the bat, it's worth noting that Foundry does not have as much automation as D&D Beyond or even Roll20, for example. So this does require you to actually do some off-sheet calculations and decision-making. Most notably are your attributes. So it relies on you actually either deciding what your attributes are or simply rolling dice off-screen. So I'm going to leave these at just default 10 for now while I move on to some of the other stuff in the character sheet design. So right off the bat, down here, it's going to ask us to choose a species. So I'm going to choose my species, and I have purchased the Player's Handbook 2024 edition in Foundry. So all of this is going to be drag and drop because of that. So I'm going to go down here and be really blasé, and I'm going to choose a human. I click on it. Now, you'll notice here on the side, though, that it does have a pop-up. These pop-ups serve to sort of allow players to read about the species they're going to choose without having to go too far into a menu system or a pop-up or I guess another tab system or another page. It's just kind of popping up on the side there for them to read as they scroll. And that's a common theme throughout all of the Foundry interface. You're going to see that just gliding your mouse over something is going to allow for a pop-up to show that allows people to read. I'm going to choose that. And it's going to immediately go into a semi-automated process of saying, hey, this is what the human has all about. So I'm going to make some decisions here. Choose some skill proficiencies as it's requesting me. And I'm going to go next. I'm going to choose one of my versatile options. And I'm going to choose lucky. And there you go. So just like that, it's similar to other systems where it has prompts that walk you through the character creation. I now have this embedded on my sheet. Now, again, we were talking about the hovering your mouse over aspect without having to go into a new menu or a new pop-up. Again, beautiful simplicity. I hover my mouse and it pops up the information you need to know. I don't know if pop-up is the right word, but I'll say pop-up. Next, we can go to our background. So there is some automation, as you're seeing. So I'm going to go down and I'm just going to pick a basic background. I'm going to go and pick a charlatan. I really don't know why or what I'm doing. I'm just filling stuff in here. Okay, and as per the new 2024 rules, background is where your ability mods come in. So it tells you which ones you can mod and which ones you can't. In this case, I have Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. I'm going to upgrade all three, and we are done. Okay, and then it's walking me through the skill proficiencies. I get 3 more. Let's take Deception. Let's take Athletics. And let's take Intimidation. Some language choices. Let's take Elvish. And let's take Giant. And just a summary of my advancement there. Telling me any kind of background feats I get, in this case Skilled. And that is now done. So you'll see that it's not occupying a lot of space on the character sheet. But again, I can hover over her to get a quick at-a-glance look at what that background provides. So we're pretty much done with the first page here. Not much more to do, but we do need to pick a class. So that's going to come in the 3rd tab, listed as features. And as you'll see, there is some population already with the features that I've chosen. And again, I can't overstate the simplicity of just being able to glide your mouse over these different things without having to go into another tab, so to speak. And not only that, but the use of a visual language is really key. D&D can get bloated really quickly. I've done a video on it. And just having icons, very much akin to a modern video game, is very helpful. It gives you an at-a-glance look at what something may or may not be. So, don't underestimate the importance of visual design. Now, up here is my character class. I'm going to add a class. And because I've purchased the Player's Handbook, I can just drag and drop. So here we go, all the available classes. And you can filter as well. So I can filter by Player's Handbook 2024 there, so I don't see all the SRD, system reference. And I'm going to choose a Bard. And I'm going to select. Now again, it's going to go into the automation portion of it. It's going to say, hey, you're level 1 Bard. Here's step 1 of 10 that you're going to do. So it goes saving throw proficiencies, just letting me know what they are. No choices needed there. Skill proficiencies, select 3. So sure, I'm going to take Perception. I'm going to take Performance. And I'll take one more. And I will take Persuasion. It's telling me that I have light armor training. I'm on step 5. Weapon proficiency is simple. Step 6, I have to select some tool proficiencies. I'll take Bagpipes. And I'll take a Lute. And one more. I'll take a Viol. Just updating me on what I have for class features, Bardic Inspiration and Spellcasting. I'm on step 8. 2 cantrips, I'll be getting an Inspiration die. And I'll be getting 4 prepared spells. There we go. So again, utilizing visual design, it's now added in some of those features that I got as being a Bard, and I can hover over at any point just to get a little idea on what that is. Now, when we come to the spellcasting section in a second, again, not automated to the extent that D&D Beyond and Roll20 is. So I'm actually going to have to go into a compendium at some point. I'm going to have to drag this stuff in. So you might be saying, well, that sucks that, the players actually have to, do stuff. But I actually kind of like it. I like the idea that everything isn't just a matter of making selections, that there is a pause there for players to actually have to think about their creation and think about the rules of the game. One of the things I don't like about too much automation is that it streamlines the process so much that players don't even know why or what they're getting in some cases. It's just a series of clicks to get to the next menu. So they end up starting the game with no real foundational knowledge on what their character can do. So having this pause where you reach into a compendium and make some solid decisions and reading is actually a good thing in my mind. So that's pretty much everything for the feature section. I've got my Bard, I've got my level 1, I've got my class abilities and everything like that. We're done. So we're almost ready to show you what this is all going to look like when I piece it together. So I'm going to go back to my spellcasting here. And it did say that I start the game with 2 cantrips of my choice. So I'm going to go and select those right now. Now, remember how I mentioned before that it was all based on dragging something from a compendium. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click on my compendium, and I'm going to click on my Player's Handbook, and you'll notice down here it says Spells. So I'm going to click on Spells, and it says that I get 2 cantrips. I'm going to pick 2. I think Dancing Lights is. My knowledge of some of these might be waning compared to other DMs in the world. But yes, Dancing Lights is a Bardic cantrip. So now that I've confirmed that, I'm going to go and I'm going to actually drag Dancing Lights onto the sheet. And I'll put it into the spell tab there so you can see. So I get 1 more cantrip. I don't think Eldritch Blast falls into the Bardic. It does not. So I'm going to take a look at Friends. And that is a Bardic one. So I'm going to take Friends and I'm going to drag that on. There you go. So you can see there now they also have their little icons as well as a little hover over to read a little bit about it. So again, that's really, really important. The same is going to go for spells, depending on the type of caster that you are. If you are a caster that gets to refresh spells after long rests, what I advise is that you drag all of the relevant spells onto your sheet for your class, and that way all the spells are listed on your sheet rather than having to go back into the compendium, and then you just simply prepare the spells as you are preparing. So that's the character sheet from a spell point of view and a feature point of view. Let's drag some equipment on. So again, going back over to the compendium, I'm going to open up my compendium, and I'm just going to simply type in for searching. There's categories for adventuring gear, armor, tools, and weapons. So in this case here, I know what I want, so I'm just going to go short sword. And I'm going to drag that over to my character sheet, and that lives up here in the inventory section. It is worth noting, and we'll get to that in a second when we talk about the combat HUD and such, but everything that you drag onto your sheet lives in the inventory section. There is no dedicated attacks bar where you can click on it and see all the various attacks that you can do. That's going to live in the combat HUD that I'm going to show you in this video as well. I'm going to put some armor on, so I'm going to just type in leather, and it's going to go to it, and I'm going to drag that leather on as well. I'll drag a dagger on. Drag that on. And you'll also, and I see here in a second, let's put a backpack. I'm going to show you what's cool about this. So if you drag a backpack, it doesn't just put it and bury it in your equipment. It creates a container for you at the top. So you click on it and it shows everything that's in the backpack. So I'm going to show you how that works here in a second. I'm going to get something like oil. And I'm going to actually put it in the backpack instead of just in my inventory. So boom. And now you'll see that it doesn't exist in my inventory, but it's in my container up here. And there's even a visual indicator of how much stuff's in your backpack. That little blue button there, or that little blue bar, shows you how much space you have left. Also, if you're using an encumbrance system, you'll see that as well over here. So I'm going to go and show you what that looks like when I drag another container, which is called a sack. And you'll see there they put up another container up on the side there, because it's a container, not necessarily a piece of equipment. I'm going to finish this off by putting a quiver and show you that, yes, a quiver is a container. And the Foundry character sheet recognizes that it's a quiver as well. Taking that a step further, let's put some arrows on my character. And I'm going to put them in my quiver, because that's where arrows belong. And you'll see it's in the quiver. So what this serves to do is it unclutters the character sheet. It makes it clear that they have containers that possibly are going to have items in it, but it doesn't clutter up the character sheet with just a wall of text showing all the individual items that are going to be on the character's body. They break it down into containers. So if you want to see what's in those containers, they simply click on the container. Very well done in my mind. I also want to bring to your attention one cool thing before we jump into the combat HUD. So you'll see down here on the lower left, there's a drop favorites. Well, we all know that while playing D&D, players have a hard time deciding what to do, or even sometimes finding the information they need to find. So having a favorite section is really neat. So I can drag my short sword down there, for example. I can drag my dagger down there. Heck, if I have spells, I can drag those down there. And those now stand out from the sheet as a general whole, because no matter what tab I go to, those favorites will always be there. Let's have a look at a character that I've already created, who's been filled in, and we can have a look at his combat HUD. So there's Hawkler. Hawkler is a ranger, a human ranger, and I've already got his equipment, gear, and special abilities all played out. So I'm going to activate his combat HUD. His combat HUD is that module that I talked about earlier, and I'm going to activate it by right-clicking on the token and going up into the top left corner. So you see those crossed swords. Going to activate it. So his combat HUD is basically a sort of one-stop shop for a player who doesn't need to have a big character sheet splashboarded on the screen at all times waiting for his dungeon master to prompt him to look something up on it. I'm going to show you how the combat HUD breaks down. It is the single best module that I've ever seen, and it's been a lifesaver for all the games that I've been playing in for my players. So you're probably wondering, well, there's not a lot of information here. Well, there is. Right off the bat, I'm going to draw your attention to the Save Skills and Tools bar. It's a beautiful, beautiful collapsible portion of the combat bar that pops up with all the skills, all your saving throws, and all your ability checks. And, just like the other aspects of Foundry, the glide over with the pop-up. If you need to know what athletics is, just glide your mouse over it. Arcana, it tells you everything you need to know, and it's tucked away in a beautiful little bar. So if a player wants to actually do something with it, he can just pop it open, click on it, roll his dice, and then when he's done rolling, he can just collapse that. So he's not getting overwhelmed with a barrage of numbers and information, and it's there when he needs it. The portrait serves to basically show all of the relevant information, what level you are, what race you are, how many hit points you have, your armor class, and any spell DCs you have. Not only that, but there's a long and short rest buttons that they added to it. Okay? Going a little bit further up above, you're going to see a little suitcase icon. That will open up the character sheet proper. Okay? So again, no fumbling through keyboards and such. There's an initiative roll built right onto the combat HUD. So if there's any fumbling there, they can roll that dice as well. So looking at the combat HUD further above it, you're going to see pairs of boxes. These are loadouts. So you'll see here that I have 3 loadouts. Each represents a main action and a bonus action. So those directly correspond to the middle portion of the combat HUD, which you'll see right now. I have a short bow and I have a favorite enemy selected. Those correspond to that loadout. If I change loadouts, that also changes the options down in the main part of that as well. Now I have a short sword and dagger. And then lastly, the third, again, swaps it out. So creating loadouts is, again, another video gamey type thing, but you know what? There's no shame in saying that if it works, it works. Clicking on spells pops it up and it says, hey, there's your cantrips. You have Thorn Whip. Hovering over shows you exactly the details that Thorn Whip does. You can close it off. And first level spells as well as the corresponding spell slots. Hovering over tells you exactly what Animal Friendship does. And then the second portion of this is the bonus action. So a lot of players struggle with action economy, not knowing if they have a bonus action available to them or if they even want to do a bonus action. So I can't count the amount of times that my Ranger players have forgot to use Hunter's Mark, or Favored Enemy as it's called, the spell, but Hunter's Mark, because it's buried on their character sheet, and because bonus actions don't rise to the forefront on the action list when you're looking at other character sheets, a lot of the times these bonus actions go unused. So here we have my character Hockler facing off against a land shark. Probably not a good idea for Hockler, but he's found himself in this situation, so we're going to use him as an example of how the character sheet integration works with the two modules that I've talked about, the combat HUD as well as the combat carousel. So right off the bat, as a Dungeon Master, I would put this into a combat state. And you're going to see right off the bat at the top, it pops out a little card. That card basically is a signifying that we're in combat, and I'm going to roll initiative for this monster. Okay, now as a player, I would go and put my character Hockler into a combat state. And up there, it's going to prompt to roll initiative for Hockler. And I'll do that there. Now, as a Dungeon Master, I'm going to put them into combat. And combat has now started between these two. So the cool thing about Foundry's combat system is it makes it very clear whose turn it is. Now, that module at the top is not a default module, so you're going to see those cards only if you have this particular module installed. So it's telling Hockler to go. Now, here's the thing. The combat HUD is about to show the real value here. So I have my loadouts, my weapons, my bonus actions, and I can swap the loadouts, obviously, but still limited by the Dungeons & Dragons rule set. So don't go swapping loadouts if the Dungeon Master wants you to do something. If you have a weapon in your hand, you need to pull out another one. There might be consequences based on how that Dungeon Master plays that out. But for now, I've got a bow in my hand, so I'm going to target this this guy. You don't need to leave this combat HUD on at all times, or this this right click there. So that would be what it looks like normally. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot this guy. So I click on my short bow. It says, hey, you don't have any targets. I'm going to target him right there. It pops it up and says, make a roll. And boom. Hockler attacks. And all of your data and everything is all up here. So it tells you right there, I missed. The other cool thing about Foundry, veering off topic a little bit from the character sheets, is that it does show things like weapon mastery traits built into the actual chat bar there. So you can hover over and see exactly what, if you have weapon mastery for that weapon, what it would do for you. So in this case, Hockler's done. He could do some jigging and jiving and moving around if he wants, but for the most part, his action is done. Let's just do one attack with the bullet and see what that looks like on the DM side of things. So again, I have that option with the combat HUD built in to just look at the combat HUD rather than pulling out in the sheet of the bullet. So I'm just going to click on bite. I'm going to select Hockler as my target. I'm going to do a bite. It's going to roll, and it's going to tell me the results of it right there. So that was a successful hit. So all of this goes back and forth, but the core fundamentals of this is that the minimalistic character sheet design using the module, the combat HUD module, means that players aren't overwhelmed with a screen full of information, full of text, full of numbers, full of rules. Everything's done in a very amazing visual style, and this all wraps it up into a nice little bow that allows players to enjoy the game without getting caught up in all the minutia of math, reading, and all of that. It's there when they need it, but it's not cluttering up the screen. Now, I promised you I was going to show you something about the character sheet design that I'm incorporating, and it's called Paper Doll. Let's have a look at why I use it and what it all breaks down to. So the Paper Doll system is a plugin or module that I'm using specifically because I decided to veto the traditional encumbrance system that the D&D rules use. I've been playing D&D for almost 40 years now, and the one bane of my existence has been encumbrance. And I've floated back and forth between using it sometimes and not using it other times. And one of the key things that I've come away with is that when using encumbrance, the encumbrance system doesn't really account for the size of items. It accounts for the weight of items, and you get some really strong characters who can carry a lot of stuff. But then when you take a step back and you look at the feasibility of carrying everything that they're carrying, it just doesn't seem to fit. Pathfinder did an amazing system by creating a system called bulk. And bulk was where they assigned a sort of size rating to each piece of equipment, saying you can only carry this much physical items regardless of how much they weigh. You know, I had a character carrying around 10 swords one time, and I thought that was just ridiculous, the idea that he was carrying around these 10 swords. So I started to boil down exactly how this could look in a system that didn't care about weight, but more cared about how much space on the body it took. So I created the gear slot system, and the gear slot system is nothing new. I mean, I didn't really create it. If you really want to get technical, Diablo kind of created, I guess. But the idea is pulled very much from Diablo and other games where you have a certain amount of items that you can carry on your person as opposed to how much those items weigh. By using this system, you have to check realism at the door to a certain degree because by sheer nature of the system, that player who was carrying around 10 swords, in theory, with my new system, could do that. However, it's going to be at the cost of other things. So let me walk you through how my system works, but more importantly, how I've adapted the Foundry character sheet with this module called Paper Doll to allow for players to be able to see it better rather than kit bashing it into a D&D Beyond character sheet. So my rule system allows the player to have a total listing of 5 items alongside his character. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. I don't know why I have that 6th one. I should delete that one. So 5 items can be anything they want to have immediately accessible, and then 10 backpack items down the side here. And characters can drag items into these slots from their character sheet. Down here you'll see I have armor. Armor doesn't count for slot items, but that quiver does. So that quiver is a part of his 5 loadout. But if you go down to the gear here, you'll see that I have things, and if I wanted to, I could actually slide a dagger into the backpack. And that fills up one of the slots. So the Paper Doll system is a very easy visual tool that bolts right onto the character sheet in Foundry that lets players just sort of visualize what their current encumbrance or current slots are filled with. And as they start getting into minutiae like oil, torches, rations, things like that, they're going to start to see very quickly that they aren't always going to have room for everything. So it's just a nice little add-on, and you can close that off by doing that to make things easier. But if they want to initiate their Paper Doll and see what it looks like, there's a tab here that they just click on, and it will show their Paper Doll. So very cool use of visual design. I like how the character sheet just sort of flows. And I mean, whether you use the combat HUD, you know, that's up to you to decide if it's extra stuff you don't want. But at its core basic level, I believe that this Foundry character sheet has just found the perfect sweet spot between providing information and having it visually represented on the table. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me show you this Foundry character sheet. I'm sure all of you who have been using Foundry probably thought this was boring as heck because you've already seen all this and know all this. But for those of you considering picking up Foundry as a tabletop, don't believe the naysayers. It actually is quite an easy tabletop to use. And as you saw in this video, the character sheet design is flawless. I hope you're all having fun playing Dungeons & Dragons out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
Before you go, I need your help. I'm trying to grow the exposure of what we do here at Maverick Games. My goal is to actually bring information to parents and students for fun, academics, and even support of neurodivergency. Please subscribe and make sure you click on those notifications. I don't do paid ads or sponsorships. I hope that you can find content here that's enjoyable for yourself and maybe others. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in.